Before we start this video, I want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Amino. If you're not familiar with the Amino apps, it's basically a bunch of communities all rolled into one. You can join anything that piques your interest, and they have tons of communities dedicated for cartoons. So when it's those cold hiatus nights, you can hit up the Amino apps because there's tons of stuff going on all the time. There's always active, there's live chats, there's art, there's theories, all that good stuff. You know the drill. There's thousands of people waiting for the show just like you are, so get on Amino, hit up a specific community for Steven Universe, Star Wars Forces of Evil, MYKAL, whatever it may be, and once the show actually does start airing, you can actually react in real time with other fans of the show on the Amino apps. They've got nostalgic stuff, they've got obscure stuff, they even have a villainous community, my boy. That's pretty insane. So the bottom line, if you're a cartoon fan and you can't wait for those juicy episodes to air, Amino is a great way to do it with other people who are also waiting with you and suffering, so you can suffer together. So if you want to check it out, we will leave the links for Android and iOS in the description down below. Speaking of suffering, let's get this video popping. Alright guys, so I don't want to talk about this too much, but I feel like it bears addressing. It's an elephant in the room, and we need to talk about it because it's important. It's important moving forward, and I already did do a video covering sort of what happened, just kind of informing people, but I want to kind of give my own take on the whole situation. If you're not aware, there was a huge, gigantic, major spoiler that was dropped by Cartoon Network. I'm sure you probably heard about it by now. It was series ruining, at least season ruining, because it kind of shows us how a huge arc wraps up for the entire series, and it was officially released by Cartoon Network, part of a podcast video for Rebecca Sugar, and then they deleted it about an hour or two after it went up, but by then the damage was already done. People already downloaded the videos, re-uploaded them, did screenshots, you know the drill. I'm not going to talk about the spoilers here. This is a spoiler-free zone, so if you're worried about any major stuff getting out, it's not going to happen on this channel, at least for the time being. So this video is not going to actually talk about what was in the video, but it's going to talk about Cartoon Network as a whole and how they've been handling Steven Universe in general. For a while now, people have been saying that Cartoon Network is deliberately sabotaging Steven Universe, and they wanted to get canceled. But obviously, that doesn't make any sense, especially at least at Cartoon Network as a whole, deliberately sabotaging one of their own shows, which in turn makes them less money, makes them less popular. One of their own properties, it doesn't add up for them to be deliberately doing that. So, do I think they're sabotaging Steven Universe? Short version, no. I don't think that actually adds up to anything. So you can just cut that out now. I think that usually comes from people who don't really have a true understanding of how this stuff works. Now, theoretically, could there be someone on the inside who has a vendetta against Steven Universe? Maybe they have a grudge against Rebecca Sugar or one of the crew members or something like that. I suppose it's possible. I don't think that's the case. Kind of conspiracy theory-ish, but you never know. Lots of crazy stuff happens, and it's 2018. Donald Trump is president. Bill Cosby is arrested for being a sex offender, and Cloud is in Smash Brothers. Anything's possible. But this does beg the question, why does this keep happening, and why is it always Steven Universe? The other shows don't seem to be having these problems as often. I mean, just to name a few issues where they just kind of let stuff slip. The voice actors filming clips for future episodes. You've got the 2-minute clips and screenshots that release for every new episode. That's because of Cartoon Network's algorithm, that's a little more complicated. There's a little more ins and outs to that, and it might not actually be an easy thing to change, but still, it's an issue nonetheless. And of course, Concrete. We're not going to talk about Concrete. And now we have this huge, gigantic, universal extinction level leak, and people are rightfully very upset. If I had to guess why this particular leak happened, I would assume that someone was editing a video for the podcast and they decided, hey, let's throw in some new clips for Steven Universe while Rebecca Sugar talks about this. And I'm guessing whoever this person was probably does not actually watch Steven Universe. Otherwise, they would have known that what they're putting in there was not very good. And the reason I don't think this was a deliberate sabotage is I feel like it would be a lot more obvious if it was a deliberate sabotage. Although this seems obvious, but the first 2 clips that they showed were pretty mild. They could have left those in. They were just fine. They were new stuff, and they gave us a little bit of a hint at some interesting things, but it was nothing like world-ending, you know. It was like more so it would have opened up more speculation, but nothing super crazy. So my guess is whoever was editing it does not watch the show, but then the issue arises is like, well, some people have to be checking these things, right? I don't think someone's just, here you go, here's a podcast video you need to make, edit it, and then release it. Like, there has to be kind of a hierarchy there, so someone edits it, and then someone checks up on it, make sure it's good to go, and then someone else maybe checks up on it, make sure it's good to go before they push it live to the YouTube channel, something along those lines. They're not just gonna have someone release it. So how did no one catch this? Is it just that everyone who happens to check this sort of thing just doesn't watch Steven Universe? But this is a running theme. I don't know if it's carelessness, incompetence, or if it's just a general lack of understanding of the weight of Steven Universe, because we do know Cartoon Network is sort of in a transitional period. They are trying to transition everything to the app for the most part, except for Teen Titans Go and whatever other show ends up coming around later on. They're going to be mostly focusing on those shows, or Teen Titans Go and shows like it on the network, because that's basically all they air is Teen Titans Go. And then they'll probably move most of the other shows to the app, where that's, you know, basically where the future is anyway, and not really in cable. So we do know that we have had confirmed Cartoon Network is kind of doing this. So this is kind of part of the issue, because I feel like they don't really know where they stand yet. And Cartoon Network has never really been a plot-driven network for the most part. If you look back at their history, most of their shows have been episodic comedies, aside from like maybe Teen Titans, the original Teen Titans, and even then that was sort of episodic. It did have arcs, but it wasn't as lore and plot driven, even as Steven Universe, at least in theory, Steven Universe is. And I think because they kind of lump Steven Universe in the comedy umbrella, because business people, they kind of look at it as if it were a show like Clarence or Gumball, even though it's not like that. A lot of nuances, there's a lot of moving parts in companies like this. I've worked at companies, not animation companies, but the general principle applies. There's a lot that goes into it, a lot of politics, a lot of dumb people, a lot of smart people kind of mixing together and blending, and people who are good at some things are bad at others, and vice versa. And I think this, at least this case, was just something where they had someone doing something that they probably should have been doing, and someone else should have been probably doing it, or at least checking up on it to make sure it was up to snuff. And it's not just the leaks, it is the absolutely horrid release schedule for Steven Universe. And again, it kind of goes down to it being a plot-driven show. If shows like Gumball had, you know, more scattered release schedules, it really is not a big deal, because it's a comedy, it's episodic, people are gonna watch it regardless and be happy regardless when it does come out. And I can't speak on why this is, why the scheduling is so scattered-brained. It could be for any number or combination of reasons. I don't work at Cartoon Network. I'm not gonna sit here and say, well, I know this is what they're doing. I don't actually know. If anyone has an idea, hit me up. The schedule's bad. Regardless of the reason, it's bad. It's very nuanced, this type of thing. Constructive criticism on Steven Universe's part. The pacing isn't very good. They have a hard time building momentum and keeping up with the momentum, getting a lot of payoffs, a lot of rewards for what we've been watching. They kind of lose their focus on the towny episodes. And again, we've been through this discussion a million times, not that the episodes themselves are bad, but when you look at the bigger picture, it doesn't really work. It doesn't flow as well. And that lack of momentum is amplified tenfold when the schedules is scattered 6 months apart. You know, we literally had to wait 6 months for these episodes, and then we didn't learn anything. And again, it's not that we didn't enjoy the episodes, but it was kind of disappointing, especially with the promo that they released, which was a super duper bait. And again, another L. And I think as of late, Star vs. Forces of Evil has been getting a lot more credit because their pacing is very good. Not even just because of their schedule is a lot more tight and Disney's on. There's less leaks, generally speaking. Again, I don't know why this is. I don't know the ins and outs of scheduling television shows, so I don't know what exactly Disney does differently and why it is that they do it differently compared to Cartoon Network. So it's not really me dogging Cartoon Network. This is part of the problem overall. So in short, it's kind of a combination of things. It's a combination of Cartoon Network being in an adjustment period, moving a lot of things to the app instead of the network itself. It's partially because they've never been a plot-driven network, so dealing with stuff like Steven Universe's lore and big reveals is kind of new territory for them. So whether it's because the people working there are not used to it, or just the way they schedule things isn't really up to par with a show like Steven Universe. All in all, it's very sad for the Crewniverse, for Rebecca Sugar, because they've had years and years of work just kind of severely damaged in a matter of seconds by their own network, and they have no control over it. They can't control what the network does with this property because they don't technically own it, they just make it. So when stuff like this happens, there's nothing they could even do, and it sucks because you kind of have to trust your network, and the network has seemingly let them down a couple of times. We've seen tweets by Matt Burnett saying today was a big mood. Hillary also posted this picture, which I kind of think sums it up. So it's clear that the Crewniverse is really upset about this, and it sucks. And it's also sad for the fans who actually watched it, because now they have a huge piece of the story ruined. So up to season 5 or season 6, maybe up to 2019, the show is not going to be as good as it could have been. A lot of people are already giving up on the show. For the people who haven't seen the leak, now they have to be weary of Steven Universe stuff online, so they have to avoid everything. So normally when they'd be engaging conversation and in the community, now they can't do that as much, so that makes the show suffer as a whole. And then it sucks for the content creators, like myself, Roundtable, Slice, Skyward Wing, whoever. We're walking on eggshells. Basically, we have to tiptoe around the fact that we saw this major thing. So whenever there's a new theory or topic, we can't really go into it as deep as we want to, because we can't ruin it for the people who haven't seen it. So hopefully Cartoon Network can work on this transition that they're doing with the app. Hopefully they can really get a system down. We've got Victor Valentino coming up. We've got Infinity Train. Infinity Train especially is going to be filled with mystery and speculation. So if they've messed this up, then it's a wrap. And I think Infinity War is even going to be more plot driven than Steven Universe, because the entire series seemingly takes place on the train itself. So you're constantly progressing. You don't really have a choice. So hopefully they can really learn the lesson from Steven Universe. Unfortunately, it looks like Steven Universe is sort of a test run of sorts for plot-driven shows, other than Adventure Time, I guess. The damage has been done for this big Steven Universe reveal. Luckily, there are still some plots that we don't really have racked up yet. But moving forward, no one on this channel is going to spoil this spoiler in particular. Hopefully, we can kind of be careful enough when talking about future episodes, reviewing episodes, that we don't actually damage the story for you guys like it was damaged for us. So just know that generally this is gonna be a spoiler-free zone for the big spoiler. Let's call it the big spoiler. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I've been Michael Williams. You've been watching Cartoon Universe, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.